Hello everyone, I'm Paul and today we're solving problem 3484, design spreadsheet. This is medium and the logic for this solution is pretty straightforward, so next I will show you my intuition, approach and efficient solution. We need to implement the spreadsheet class. So first we have the constructor. Here we need to build a grid of 26 columns and the given amount of rows. And then we need to implement these three methods: set cell, reset cell, and get value. So let's say we have this. Let's say we build a spreadsheet with 2 rows. This means we need to build a grid with 26 columns, and here we are using 3 rows. Why 3? Because we need to include this row number 2. We start from 0 and row number 2 is here. And initially every cell is set to 0. So now we can move to this method, set cell. Here we are given some cell and some value, and we are given a cell in this format, meaning first we have a letter and then we have one or more numbers. So let's say we call set cell and the cell is A1 and the value is 5. We know that everything that's after the first character in the cell corresponds to the row. So we know that this one corresponds to this row. And we know that the first character corresponds to the column. So here we are looking at column A, row 1. Now the question is, how can we translate this character into the number of this column? Because this is column 0, this is 1, 2, 3, and so on up to 26. So the question is, how can we translate uppercase letters to the right number of column? And for this we have something called ASCII table, which is this table. So here, for example, uppercase A, it's here. And the ASCII code for this character is 65. And we have a Python method to get this code for any character, and this is the ORD method. So if we take the code for uppercase A and subtract the code for uppercase A, the result for this is 0. And what this means is character A corresponds to column 0. Now let's say that here we have a B instead. We know that this corresponds to column number 1. So here we can take the ASCII code for uppercase B, which is 66, and subtract the code for uppercase A, which is 65. And the result for this is 1. So we know that uppercase B corresponds to column number 1, meaning here. And this is basically the main challenge for this problem. Everything else is pretty straightforward, so let's continue. So going back to a problem, if we call set cell with A1 and a value of 5, we know that A1 corresponds to the coordinates 1, 0, meaning this cell. So we can replace this with the new value, meaning 5. And if we call reset cell with A1, we know how to get the coordinates for this cell, which is this cell. So we change this back to 0. And finally, for this method, we are given some formula in the form of some number or reference to some cell plus another number or reference to some cell. And we need to return the computed sum. So if the formula is equal 5 plus 5, we need to extract the corresponding integers and we need to return the sum of these two, which is 10. If we are given this formula, here we have a number and then a reference to one cell. We already know how to get the coordinates for this cell, so we already know how to get this value, and we extract this, and 5 plus 0 is 5, so we just return 5 in this case. So this is basically the entire approach. Now with this in mind, let's go with the code. First we are given this, so we can just remove this part. And we start with the constructor. First we need to build the grid, so we are calling this grid. Self.grid is equal to an array, and here we use for I in range rows plus 1. This is for rows, and for columns we use an array with 0 times 26. Now we can go with this method, setCell, and here we can just type self.grid at some row and some column is equal to the given value, to this value. Now we need to find the row and column. So we know that the row is cell from 1 all the way to the end. This is a substring, and we need to transform this into an integer because we need numbers for coordinates. And regarding columns, we take the code. Remember that here we can use the OR method, and we take the code for cell at 0, the first character, and we need to subtract OR of uppercase A. And this is a method. And we can do exactly the same for reset cell. This is equal to 0. And for get value, we are given some formula, and we need to extract the numbers or references. So we are storing this in an array. We are calling this array current. First, we need to filter the equal sign, which is in the first position, so we can take a substring here also. We say formula from 1 all the way to the end, dot split, and we are always having a plus operator in the middle, so we can use this as a separator. And now current has 2 elements. We need to add these elements, so the result is initially 0 for every value in current. First, if the current value is digit, we just add to the result the value, and we need to transform this into an integer. Else, this means that we have a reference to some cell. So we can do the same as before. We add to the result self.grid at some row and some column. For row, we use value from 1 all the way to the end, and we transform this into an integer. And for column, we use the code for value at 0 minus the code for uppercase A. Finally, we can return result. So this is it for the code. I think this is right. So let's submit this and see if it works. As you can see, this works and it's very efficient. Here, time and space complexity will be big O of the amount of rows. Here it's big O of 1. Here it's also big O of 1. And here it's roughly big O of the amount of characters in the formula. So this is it for the code. If you found this useful, please drop a like, subscribe, and see you in the next one. Bye bye.